Ever feel like you got this little voice in your head? The one that just won't quit.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes it's your biggest cheerleader, you
Yeah.
know, but other times, well, not so much.
It's that internal monologue, isn't it? We all have it. We're all navigating it.
And that's exactly where we're heading today.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking a deep dive into, well, what happens when that inner voice kind of goes into overdrive with all the negativity,
Mm-hmm.
what the author Ethan Kross calls chatter. And maybe more importantly, how you can actually like take the reins back.
Yeah, how to guide that voice. And our guide for this is Ethan Kross's book, Chatter, The Voice in Our Head, Why It Matters, and How to Harness It. It's really insightful.
Right.
We're digging into the core ideas, the wisdom, and especially the practical strategies he lays out.
Exactly. Our mission here really is pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
We want to equip you with a good understanding of this whole chatter thing
Mm-hmm.
and give you some solid, actionable techniques, stuff you can actually use.
Right, to manage that inner critic.
Yeah, and maybe turn that whole internal monologue into, a positive force,
Yeah.
an asset even.
So let's get into it.
Okay, so first things first. What exactly is chatter, according to Cross?
Well, at its core, chatter is really that negative, repetitive self-talk, the kind that just gets you stuck.
Okay, yeah.
Thinking about those endless loops of worry, maybe, or constantly going over things you can't change.
Oh, definitely. Ruminating.
Exactly, ruminating. And that really harsh inner critic that seems to pop up at like the worst possible times.
Right.
It's like being trapped in a mental echo chamber of negativity.
That sounds familiar. But hang on, Cross is also clear that the inner voice itself isn't bad, is he?
Yeah.
It does helpful stuff too.
Oh, absolutely not. That same internal voice is, well, it's fundamental for so many critical things we do.
Like what?
Like planning your day, for instance, or reflecting on experiences so you can learn from them, even managing your emotions in, healthy ways. It's basically an essential tool. So the real key is figuring out when that useful inner voice kind of shifts, when it morphs into this unproductive negative chatter.
Right. Recognizing when it stops being a helpful guide and starts being more like a tormentor, I guess?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Can you give us a concrete example, something that really shows how chatter can, mess things up for someone?
Yeah, a really compelling example Cross uses quite a bit is the athlete who chokes under pressure.
Ah, okay.
Think about it. They've got the skills, they've put in thousands of hours of practice, right? But then the big moment comes.
Yeah.
And their mind just floods with negative self-talk, don't mess this up, everyone's watching, what if I fail?
Oh, man.
And this overwhelming internal negativity, it actually sabotages their physical performance right there in real time.
Wow.
That's chatter hijacking ability. So the core idea here is that this internal noise, it can have a really tangible impact on what we actually do.
Okay. So it's not just about feeling a bit down or stressed.
Yeah.
Why does Cross say this chatter really matters, like in the grand scheme of things?
Well, the impact goes way beyond just, putting you in a bad mood.
Mm-hmm.
His research, and other research too, points to some pretty significant links between unchecked chatter and our overall well-being, our health.
Like physical health.
Yes, exactly. This sort of constant stress response that gets triggered by all this internal negativity, it's been associated with physical health problems. Things like insomnia.
Sleep problems, right?
Yeah, and even potentially cardiovascular issues. Heart problems.
Seriously, so this isn't just metaphorical in our heads stuff.
Not at all. It can have real physiological effects. It puts strain on the body.
That's quite eye-opening, actually. It's not just a mental annoyance.
Precisely. And it doesn't stop there. It can also cast a shadow on our relationships.
How so?
Well, think about constantly venting, right? Just letting it all out.
Yeah, sometimes that feels good, though.
It can offer a temporary release, sure, but Cross points out that if it becomes a pattern, just venting the same negativity over and over without actually processing it or looking for solutions, it can really strain your connections with people, friends, family, partners. They might start to feel overwhelmed or, kind of helpless listening to it all the time.
I can see that. Like you're just dumping on them.
Exactly. So chatter isn't just an internal battle. It creates ripples outwards.
Okay. So it's definitely not just an annoyance. It's got potentially serious effects, mental, physical, relational.
Yeah.
So knowing how much it matters, what can we actually do about it? Cross offers strategies, right?
Ugh, lots of them.
Let's start with these distancing techniques he talks about. What's the main idea there?
The core concept behind psychological distance is basically creating a buffer, like a bit of space between you and the really intense emotions that your thoughts are stirring up.
A buffer. Okay.
It's about stopping yourself from getting completely swept away by the emotional storm of the moment.
Right.
And the key insight really is that creating this little bit of mental breathing room, it lets you think more clearly. It dials down the emotion just enough.
Okay, that makes sense. And one way to do that is distance self-talk. How does that actually work?
It's fascinating, actually, and surprisingly simple, but effective. It involves intentionally talking to yourself using the third person, or even just using your own name.
Wait, like talking about yourself to yourself.
Kind of, yeah. So instead of thinking, oh man, I'm so nervous about this presentation, you might switch it to, okay, listener's name, you prepared for this, you can handle it. See, that subtle shift in language, Cross argues, creates perspective. It's almost like you're giving advice to a friend rather than being stuck inside the feeling yourself. It just softens that immediate emotional hit.
That is interesting. It's like taking a step back, looking at yourself from the outside almost.
Exactly that. And the other main distancing technique he mentions is temporal distancing.
Temporal, like time.
Precisely. Temporal distancing means projecting yourself forward in time, thinking about how you'll likely feel about whatever's bothering you right now, but, later on.
Okay. How does that help?
Well, when you're really caught up in some intense negative feeling, try asking yourself, okay, honestly, will this matter as much in a month? What about a year from now? Or 5 years?
Ah, I see.
Just the act of imagining your future self and what their perspective might be can really shrink the emotional weight of the present moment. It gives you that broader time horizon, takes the immediate sting out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Widening the lens beyond just right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are distancing techniques. But Cross also talks about strategies involving like shifting our focus and changing our environment.
Yes, absolutely. These are also really powerful. One that might seem a bit counterintuitive is helping others.
Helping others helps you.
It really can. When you turn our attention to someone else's problems, offer them support or advice, we often tap into a more rational, calmer way of thinking. We're less emotionally tangled up in their stuff.
Right, you can be more objective.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that this outward focus, this act of advising someone else, can then give you a clearer, more objective view on your own problems.
Huh. So we're better advisors for others than for ourselves sometimes.
Pretty much. As Cross puts it, we're better at advising others because we're less emotionally entangled. So paradoxically, helping out can really help you sort your own head out.
That's a great takeaway. Takes the focus off your own internal drama. What about the environment? Environmental control.
Yeah, this is about our physical surroundings, and the impact they have is often, well, underestimated.
You mean like a messy desk?
Exactly. A cluttered, disorganized space can actually mirror and even amplify feelings of mental clutter, of chaos inside. So by taking steps, even small ones, to organize your physical world, tidying your desk, decluttering a room, you can help cultivate a sense of calm and order internally. It helps quiet that noise.
So there is something to that tidy desk, tidy mind idea.
It seems so. The core idea is that order outside can really help foster order inside.
I can definitely see that. And you also mentioned something about seeking awe-inspiring experiences. That sounds bigger.
It is, and it's a really interesting one. These are experiences that spark a sense of wonder, maybe vastness, things that make you feel kind of small, but also connected to something much larger than yourself.
Like what kind of things?
Well, nature is a classic example, right? Gazing up at a truly dark, star-filled sky, or standing by the ocean, looking out at that huge expanse.
What?
Cross suggests these moments can powerfully shift our focus. They pull us away from our internal worries and anxieties and give us this broader, more humbling perspective. Reminds you of the bigger picture.
Yeah, like hitting a mental reset button by putting your own problems in a much larger context. Okay, that makes sense. Let's move on to strategies around action and connection. Cross talks about venting versus processing.
Right.
What's the deal there? Because venting feels necessary sometimes.
It does, and this is a really critical distinction he makes. Venting often is just that raw, unfiltered release of negative emotion, just letting it rip without much thought or direction.
Right.
And while, yeah, it might give you a temporary feeling of relief, Cross's research suggests it can actually make the chatter worse in the long run.
Really?
By essentially having you rehearse the negativity.
Yeah.
You just keep dwelling on the problem, reinforcing those neural pathways without actually moving towards a solution or a different perspective.
Like scratching an itch that just makes it itchier later?
That's a perfect analogy. It feels good for a second, but ultimately isn't helpful.
So just complaining on repeat isn't the best strategy.
Probably not. Processing, on the other hand, is different. It involves talking with someone, yes, but someone who does more than just nod along.
Okay.
Someone who listens empathetically, sure, but also maybe helps you reframe the situation,
Yeah.
see it from different angles, maybe explore potential solutions or ways to cope.
Ah, so it's more constructive.
Exactly. It's active, it's constructive communication aimed at understanding the issue and moving through it, not just stewing in it.
Right.
So the key insight isn't just that you talk, it's how you talk and who you talk with that really makes the difference.
That makes perfect sense. Moving beyond just the emotion to actually working with it. Okay. What about rituals? How do they fit in?
Rituals, even really small, seemingly arbitrary ones, can be surprisingly powerful for managing that internal chaos.
Like superstitions?
Sort of, but maybe broader. Think about athletes. Again, many have very specific pre-game routines.
Yeah, they do all sorts of weird stuff sometimes.
Well, those structured activities, those routines, they provide a sense of stability, predictability, and that can be incredibly grounding when your mind feels like it's spinning out of control with negative thoughts.
Ah,
The act of performing the ritual gives your mind some structure, some order, when everything else feels chaotic.
like little mental anchors. I like that. And the last one in this group was small acts of control.
Exactly. And these are just what they sound like. Little things you can do to get back a sense of agency when you feel like your thoughts are just running wild and overwhelming you.
What kind of things?
Oh, it could be anything, really. Organizing one drawer, finally tackling that small task you've been avoiding, even just making a minor decision and sticking to it. These little actions give you a much-needed feeling of control, even if it's small. And that feeling of control can help quiet that internal racket. It's about pushing back against feeling helpless to your thoughts.
Taking concrete steps, however small, to counter the feeling of being overwhelmed.
Got it. Okay, wow, that's a lot of really useful stuff. Let's try to pull it all together. What are the absolute core takeaways from Kross's work on chatter that you'd want people listening to really grab onto?
Okay, let's distill it. Firstly, and maybe most fundamentally, just recognize that your inner voice is this incredibly powerful tool. It's essential for so much. But it also has this potential to cause real distress when it tips over into that negative, repetitive chatter. Right. It's a double-edged sword. Awareness first.
Awareness first, absolutely. Secondly, remember the power you have through psychological distance. Simple shifts, like using your name. Kross actually says, addressing yourself by name is a simple shift that unlocks wiser thinking.
Wow. Unlocks wiser thinking just from using your name.
It creates that little bit of space needed for control. Third, don't forget temporal distancing, zooming out in time. As the quote goes, zooming out in time shrinks the emotional weight of the present.
Get that longer perspective. Lessen the immediate blow.
Exactly. Fourth, that surprising benefit of helping others. Remember, we're better at advising others because we are less emotionally entangled in their problems. Focusing outward can bring inward clarity.
A helpful way to help yourself. Yeah.
Precisely. Fifth, your environment matters, truly. Order in the world around us breeds order in the mind within us. A little tidying can go a long way for your mental state.
The outside reflects the inside and vice versa.
Got it. Sixth, be really mindful about how you talk about your problems. It's not just talking. It's how you talk and who you talk to that matters. Processing beats venting.
Quality over quantity in communication. Makes sense.
And finally, seventh, the value of rituals and those small acts of control. They provide structure and agency. Kross puts it nicely. Performing rituals provides structure for the mind when chaos threatens to take over.
Little anchors, little wins? Okay.
Those deliberate actions provide stability.
So it really feels like the overall message isn't about trying to eliminate the inner voice entirely. That's probably impossible anyway.
Oh, definitely impossible, and probably not desirable either.
Right. It's more about learning to work with it, to guide it.
Exactly. It's about harnessing it. Kross uses a great line. The mind's voice is a tool that can help or harm depending on how we wield it.
Wielding the tool. I like that.
Our goal is just to get better at wielding it effectively for our own benefit.
Okay. So to kind of wrap up our deep dive into Ethan Kross's work on chatter, the big message seems really empowering, actually.
It's that you do have the power to influence your inner dialogue. It's not just something that happens to you.
Right. You're not just a passive recipient.
By understanding what this chatter really is, and then actively trying out some of these strategies, creating distance, managing your environment, being smarter about how you talk things through.
All those tools we discussed?
You can actually shift from feeling controlled by your thoughts to, well, taking control of them.
Yeah, think of it like becoming the conductor of your own internal orchestra,
Oh, nice.
making sure all the sections are playing together harmoniously instead of just letting one loud negative instrument drown everything else out.
That's a fantastic metaphor. Love it. Okay, so for you listening right now, maybe take a second and think about one specific area, just one, in your life where you tend to notice that chatter getting particularly loud.
Where does it show up most for you?
Yeah. And then, looking at these techniques we've talked about, maybe it's trying that distance self-talk, just experimenting with using your name. Or maybe making a conscious effort to really process a frustration with someone helpful instead of just venting about it again.
Or maybe something as simple as dedicating, like 5 minutes to tidying up your immediate workspace.
Could be any of them.
Which one could you maybe experiment with this week? Just try it out, see what happens. What might you discover when you start to intentionally, deliberately try to guide that inner voice?
It's definitely a journey, but one worth starting.
Absolutely. A journey of self-discovery for sure.